Gentlemen No Class is proud to be a part of the HC Universal Network. Gentlemen No Class is produced, mixed, and edited by M5 Studios.
This podcast contains explicit language and is intended for adult audiences. The views and opinions of Gentlemen No Class are strictly for comedic purposes and should not be taken literally. For instance, like this disclaimer. Now grab yourself a pint and enjoy.
Hey, and welcome to another episode of Gentlemen No Class, a podcast that when the going gets weird, the weird turn pro. I'm Jake.
And I'm Rob.
I'm Ryan.
And like it or not, gentle ladies and gentlemen, we are your hosts for this episode.
I forgot to do the switching. So, Ryan, introduce yourself again.
I'm Ryan.
Everybody knows Ryan. Ryan's our favorite. He comes on all the time.
Oh, you're just saying that.
So tonight I've been trying to get Ryan on the podcast for a while to talk about comics and stuff. And hold on,
It's about time.
I know you hear the echo because
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
It's on my iPad because
Very nice, Rob.
we recorded it like that one
You
time.
got
Remember
that?
that?
I remember that.
I know. I got to make a note. Turn down the volume.
And you got notes right there. You need to put
Well,
that on
Ryan, because I'm not going to call him out. Ryan did this in his free time at home
love it, man.
when he was not doing
Slash
anything
work.
else.
there. I love it, dude.
Well, I didn't want to like call you out and like have your boss be watching this and be like, so making notes for a podcast while you're at work. Huh?
I don't think that's a problem.
He was on lunch break.
I didn't. I just want to make sure. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
So anyway, we're going to be talking about comics, comic collecting, kind of the history of comics. Ryan's made like a whole outline spreadsheet for us over here. So, but I did want to say that I had a really cool experience last night, and I wanted to just bring it up real quick.
No invite, right?
No
Were you
invite for
invited?
anybody.
Nothing. I got nothing.
No, nobody was invited.
Thanks,
This
Rob.
was this was a
Appreciate that.
very like I did this just me and my daughter, like on purpose.
That's awesome.
So
Can't be mad at that.
Usually Ryan and I and Brian go to most of the opening night, Marvel movies and stuff like that. So we usually go Thursday night, 7:00. That's usually the first showing, but they keep creeping shows back and back further. So apparently, like there was 4 p.m. shows yesterday for Ghostbusters Afterlife. Yeah, they're 4 p.m. So anyway, Edie and I took Edie. We went and had dinner and watched the movie Thursday night because she never gets to go. She always wants to go. So what I made her do was watch Ghostbusters 1 yesterday when she got home from school. And then I told her, I was like, okay, if you have to watch it because you're not going to know what's going on in this one, because I had seen the trailer and I was like, all right, I see like the dog beasts or whatever from the first one were in the trailer, right? So
Zool.
Yeah, Zool and Vince Clortho, Rick Moranis's character or whatever.
Gotcha.
The gatekeeper and the keymaster.
Oh,
you know
no,
what I mean?
yes.
So the dogs, those are the gatekeeper and the keymaster. So I saw those in the trailer and I was like, this has to tie directly into the 1984 Ghostbusters. Like it has to be a continuation story. So I was like, Edie, watch it so that you'll understand what's going on.
And the Stay Puft, right?
Yeah, and the Stay Puft. So I was like, it's got to tie in, right? Like there's no way that it doesn't. And that's the only way to really do it. I'm not going to do a movie review on this because you guys haven't seen it and most people haven't seen it. But I will say this. That movie, as far as like being a sequel goes, best way to do a sequel that I've seen in a long time, and a very, very fitting tribute to the original and a nice fitting tribute to Harold Ramis in it also. Like they did everything so I just thought it was done extremely tastefully and extremely well, the way that they integrated the old storyline with the new storyline and the way that they integrated the characters and stuff like that. The McKenna Grace, the girl that plays Phoebe, the little girl, 12-year-old girl or whatever in the movie, steals the show. Her and Finn Wolfhard, like they're just captivating. You just want to watch them the whole time. So I will say, like it is probably one of the best movies I've seen this year.
Wow.
I will put it in. I will go. Unless somebody can remind me of a better movie I've seen in 2021, that'll be my number one.
That's saying a lot, knowing that you just watched Venom 2. You know what I mean?
I mean, I didn't so much watch Venom 2 as like made it through Venom 2.
There you go. Have you seen Venom?
I have. It was not spectacular.
No, not at all.
No, in my opinion. Shang-Chi? Better than
I like
Shang-Chi?
it better than Shang-Chi.
Okay,
yeah.
because Shang-Chi was strong.
Shang-Chi
man.
was strong. We watched it again the other day. It was out on Disney
Disney
Plus.
Plus, yeah.
So we watched it, and yeah, I agree. It is strong, but I'm telling you, Ghostbusters Afterlife is stronger.
So
Like,
we're talking what 25 years, 35 years between the original and this.
37 years.
Oh my God,
1984 Ghostbusters.
Holy moly! But you didn't have to see that one, right, to really appreciate this.
I mean,
one. I'm sure it helped.
Yeah,
It
okay,
does
I would
help,
assume,
right?
yeah, I
Obviously,
would think
but
so, yeah.
But I can't believe they would make this thinking, oh, you've got to go watch the one
Oh,
from
like
37
it's a
years
contingent
ago.
thing. Well, it's a
Right.
sequel, so I mean, and this is more of a direct sequel than even Ghostbusters 2.
Really? Okay.
Wow.
So like it's almost a direct storyline tie-in.
Well, can I just say one thing? You know, when when you have a sequel or a continuation of going into a trilogy that happens 30 years into the original, past the original.
Yeah.
They kind of direct it to a certain audience. Did they do that on this one? Did they actually give fan service?
A little bit. So there's a little bit of fan service, so here's the thing: is like there was interviews that Bill Murray did. I mean, I don't even remember when, but Bill Murray did a bunch of interviews, years ago when they were trying to get this movie made the first time, and he said that he declined the script because I guess he has partial rights to it. They can't do anything without him and Dan Aykroyd and Harold Ramis all signing off on it. So they had written a script and Bill Murray was like, nobody wants to watch a bunch of old guys go fucking chase ghosts. Nobody wants to watch that. And so he wouldn't sign off on it. And it's true. Like, had this been just like, oh, we're still busting ghosts and we're 70 years old,
Yeah.
it'd have been lame as fuck. But the way that they did it was they're bringing in a new generation. They did a lot of fan service, a lot of throwbacks to the original movie. And they also did a lot of like callback from the original movie and did a lot of fan service to those original characters and did a lot of continuation of their storylines and things. And just so much pull from the original movie that just it was very tasteful fan service. I thought it was very very good.
I would disagree though. Would you not want to watch a movie that has 70-year-old Dan Aykroyd chasing ghosts?
Maybe you would.
Maybe
I would. Maybe Rob would.
Did y'all watch Rocky 6?
No. Well, there's a Rocky 6.
Yeah, where he's like in the 60s coming back.
Fighting the young guy.
Fighting
Really?
an actual boxer. Yeah, Tavares, whatever.
Oh, you're not talking about.
Yeah, Rocky. It's called Balboa.
So
I thought you were talking about Creed.
I did not watch that, but I enjoyed the hell out of Creed. Which, okay, to your point, I wouldn't want to watch a movie about 70-year-old
I didn't
Rocky
mind
Balboa,
watching it.
but I enjoyed the hell out of Creed. And what you just said reminded me of the new Star Wars movies.
Yeah.
Right? Where it's like 70-year-old Harrison Ford, Han Solo. That was badass
Yeah.
seeing him in that part, but then it's also
He played his
establishing
role.
all
Yeah,
these new characters
exactly.
for the next couple of movies.
So
you know?
and that's okay. That's a very good equivalation. I would equivalate this movie to Star Wars Force Awakens.
Yeah.
Because you get a lot of fan service, harken throwbacks to the original characters. They're playing their original parts. They play them extremely well. You get all that fan service, but the majority of the movie is new characters in new situations. Right. It's similar storyline, so you have that familiarity input into there, but it's just enough to make it so that like you could do a sequel to this and move past it and make more Ghostbusters movies for a new generation, kinda, if you wanted to.
Cool.
The 2016 didn't do it for you guys, huh?
No.
I don't think it did for anyone.
I don't know what you're talking about. There was a 2016 movie?
Yeah, my son loves it, but he's 5 years old, so I'll give him a pass.
I wouldn't give him a pass on that. It's fucking dead to me. So, on tonight's episode, we're going to be talking about comics. We're going to be talking about mainly, I put Marvel up there because I'm a big Marvel comic head, and so are you. You're not super into DC comics, so
Not as much.
so Jake can go. Jake, you even brought a Marvel comic with you.
I dabble a little bit with Marvel.
What you got there?
So I did. Well, we'll unveil that. It's nothing compared to your, stuff that you brought.
No, it's all cool, man.
So
Jesus, right.
what I'm just going to kind of go down Ryan's cheat sheet notes here. So we're starting how did you start with comics, Ryan? Like how did you start up with like reading comics, collecting comics? I know it kind of goes back to Pops and like because we've had this conversation with your dad before, where he collected comics for a long time when he was younger.
Yeah, so he was my first real exposure to comic book characters in general, right? You know, he was born in 1959, so he grew up in that silver age of comic
Sure, he
books.
appreciates you calling him out like that.
What?
It's all right.
He knows how old he is. But you know, so he grew up when, you know, Spider-Man came out, X-Men, Avengers, all that stuff, right? So he grew up on that. I did not. But, you know, he talked about him a lot in my youth. And so in the 90s, late 80s, early 90s, that's when the Batman movies came out. That's when the X-Men cartoons, the Batman cartoons, the Spider-Man cartoons. That was my reference to these characters. You know, it wasn't the comic books themselves. It was those offshoots from that.
Sure.
You know, and then slowly, you know, I started collecting then, and it's really only been in the last like few years, really, once COVID hit and all that, that I got hot and heavy into collecting comic books, which is what a lot of people did, which we'll talk about in a bit.
Yeah. So what about you, Jake? Like, what was your experience with
when I was just younger? You know, I'll go with my mom to like Randall's, and you know they had like right when you walked in, there had a plethora of magazines, and then they had like a little comic book stand. You know, on a rack.
That
spinny one,
vocabulary.
right?
Yeah, the spinning ones. Right?
Yeah.
And I started reading a bunch of Savage Dragon.
Oh yeah.
That's all they really had. But then they also had Wizard World magazine.
Okay.
So I picked that up. And this was probably when I was like maybe 10, 11 years old. And that's what got me into comics. But then I stopped for some reason. I was just watching the X-Men shows and Batman animated series and stuff like that. And then for some odd reason, I went back pretty much when we were jamming in the band at the studio. And I started going to the comic book shop, and I'm like, shit, I missed out a whole bunch of stuff and all these new storylines and everything. So I got back into it and haven't looked back. And then I started looking into it where I was like, oh man, I can make some money off this stuff. And I started collecting them and trying to keep it being anal retentive and just making sure that they don't get no kinks or anything like spine wear or spine ticks. But this is too much for me, to be honest with you. You know, it's almost like it seems like every other week there's going to introduce a new character, and then we can get into that later. But so that's my story. What about you, Rob?
I actually got into comics. I never could afford comics, so like I was never allowed to like buy comics because I never, you know, when I was a kid, like a lot of my friends had comics, so like they would bring them to school and I would read them while we were at school. You know what I mean? And so like that's kind of how my introduction to comics. The first like real like comic book that I owned, and I never got into them for collecting. I got into them for the stories. I mean, I think that's what most kids get into comic books for. So my first actual like comic book that I owned was actually a trade paperback, which a trade paperback is like a bundle of comics, like a whole storyline bundled together into one like book. And it was actually a DC book. It was The Return of Superman. And I traded my entire Pog collection for that trade paperback. Wow. So, and I had that thing for a long time. I don't know what happened to it. But yeah, that was the first book that I owned. And then I had, you know, guys in the neighborhood and friends of mine at school, you know, they had, you know, their parents would buy them comics. So we would, you know, they would bring them when we would read them at lunch and stuff like that. And that's how I got into comics. And then as I got older, obviously the MCU and, you know, same thing with Ryan, when we were teenager or older, preteens and stuff like that, the X-Men series and, which they're bringing back on Disney Plus.
Yeah, have y'all talked about that?
No,
I guess
have
I haven't.
not.
That's pretty fresh news.
That is,
yeah, from Disney Plus.
That's really
X-Men,
exciting.
X-Men 97, same animation style, same voice actors, same storyline. They're just picking it up right where it left off.
It better be the same goddamn theme song.
It is. They already said it is.
Okay.
I know it's a little warm in here.
Yeah, it was these lights.
These
is
super
the
hot
animation
LED
going to be the
lights.
same?
Yes, same animation. It's just like they're picking it up where it left off.
Are they
It's
going to
be
like
awesome.
4:3 aspect ratio this one?
Probably not. I mean,
of course not.
Who has a 4:3 aspect ratio TV?
Whatever.
So let's talk about getting.
Can someone beer me? I'm sorry. Before we get into like,
yeah, sure. What do you want?
just surprise me. I don't care. No
give me a
seltzer.
seltzer. Give me a
Yeah,
read.
no seltzer.
I was gonna.
I know you would. I would. I inspect my beer, sir.
So the next thing on the list is talking about the current boom in comics, and so what is Ryan? You have on here like the current boom in older comics. and you're referencing COVID and the MCU. I knew that the MCU was causing people to get back into comic book collecting and comic book things like that. So, but what about COVID? How did that have an impact on that?
It's just old dudes sitting around with time on their hands, and they're like, I got nothing to do. What am I going to do? Oh, I'm going to get back into that thing I used to be into 30 years ago, collecting. So there's been a huge spike in comic book collecting, like the old stuff, right? Not the newer stuff so much, but the old stuff. Baseball cards. Remember all those baseball cards you got that you thought were worth nothing? They're actually worth something now because everyone's collecting them again. So it's the same deal with comic books, right? I think I put down some stats on there, like,
what is HA.com? Tell me what that is.
HeritageAuctions.com. They sell a lot. They auction lots of stuff, but one of the really cool things they do weekly auctions on comic books.
Okay.
Right.
So Ryan has on here some stats on comics from Heritage Auctions, and Hulk 181, which was the first appearance of Wolverine, graded at 9.6, and we'll get into what grading here. Do you have a thing? Yes, we'll get into that in a minute.
Absolutely.
9.6 sold August 2nd, 2018.
Let me guess. Let me guess the number.
Yeah. Go ahead.
So 9.6, Hulk 181.
Yeah, and this is in 2018.
I'm gonna call it.
And this
10?
is after.
Is that too high or am I too low?
This is after
10K?
Yeah.
That's damn close.
That
10.8. Yeah,
ridiculously
10,800.
close.
Yeah.
So I mean,
very good.
But
Nice.
Wolverine is super popular at this point in time in 2018. All the X-Men movies have come out. You know what I mean? He's obviously the most popular X-Men character for some reason.
He's been incredibly popular for 40 years now. He's been
But I
crazy
think a
popular.
9.8 would like double that. I
It
think.
would be. I really just picked a random thing, but go ahead and test them. Test them.
Oh,
the same book sold in September of 2021 at Heritage Auctions for how much?
The same 181, 9.6.
3 years later,
3 years, same book.
post COVID or middle of
I'm
COVID.
gonna say 15.
33.6.
What?
Yes.
$33,600.
Yes.
I didn't expect that much of an
in
increase.
3 years,
Jesus Christ.
it tripled in value.
Jesus Christ.
What people would pay for it.
And that's going to plummet eventually.
It
I
will.
think.
Yeah, no,
It's
it'll
like
regress
stocks,
to the mean.
man. It's like.
I think it's probably worse than the stocks, to be honest with you.
so volatile.
Snocks. What was it?
Yeah.
Stonks.
Stonks.
Yeah.
It's just crazy.
So-
33. Ooh.
So that's So that's COVID and the MCU. Obviously, that's bringing back into pop culture and stuff like that. So you want your notes as reference for this for comic book beginnings?
Sure.
So talk to us about like where comic books as a print medium started. Like, I mean, we kind of take it for granted now that comic books have kind of always been a thing, but they haven't always been a thing. That was kind of like right after like post World War II.
Right.
But even pre-World War II is when they started, right?
Yeah, really when they became what we know as comic books was in the early 1900s, right? The first comic book, quote unquote, actually came out in the mid 1800s, right? But, it didn't look like what we think of as comic books today. And it evolved and it evolved and evolved. And then in the early 1900s, they came out with these print books that were 30 pages or so, like we're used to today, and they were more like just collections of comic strips, right?
Okay,
just
yeah.
funny things. They're supposed to be funny, right? And then that was in the early 1900s, 1910s, 1920s, and then in 1930, I think it was 1938 is when Action Comics #1 came out.
So right after the start of World War II.
Was that when?
Yeah. Well, I mean, Poland, Nazi Germany invaded Poland in 1935. Somebody fact check me on that. 35 or 36.
Close enough.
Polish, right?
All right.
Like, you should know this, right?
Are you Polish?
Yeah. Well, my last name is Polish.
Oh, well.
So,
It's I get that all the time. So but Skolaski is my dad's stepfather's name.
right.
So there's no blood
Oh,
there.
no,
Right,
yeah, it's the name.
Yeah.
Like,
Right.
like
Yeah,
Paul
so I
and
get
Jesus.
I have to and I get all the great Polak jokes without any of the without actually being Polish.
That's
So,
hilarious. That's awesome.
yeah.
So anyway, like I said, so Action Comics #1, which was the first appearance of Superman, really was the game changer, right? That's when it moved from being those silly type of things to being superhero driven, right?
sure.
And that captured the imagination of kids everywhere, right?
Yeah.
Blew up, became like an actual thing you could make money doing, printing comic books and selling them. And so that's when it took off with all the DC characters. Then, Timely Comics, which eventually became Marvel. They came out with Captain America and Submariner and the Human Torch and all that. That was back then in that early age.
Yeah, and Captain America came out like in during World War II as a patriotic, propaganda, obviously for kids.
But when did Detective Comics 27 come out? Was that
obviously
after?
that was the 27th issue of Detective
I understand
Comics.
that,
Somewhere.
but was that after Action Comics?
It
one?
was.
It was.
I want to say that was 39, and Action Comics 1 was 38.
Okay.
But yeah.
The only reason I say that because I think Detective Comics was merely just like crime stories, right?
It really
and up
was.
until 27 when they introduced Batman, and then they kind of ran with Batman. And then, but when you said that Action Comics #1 was like superhero driven from that point on, I thought, okay, well maybe Detective Comics was first, but you know what I mean? Because
No, absolutely, you're right.
mean, maybe I'm completely wrong. Apparently,
No, you're 100% right. Detective Comics #1 had nothing to do with Batman. It wasn't until 27 that he came out, and even then, it wasn't like it became just about Batman.
Right, that's
Batman
true.
was one of 4 stories in
true.
those comic books, but he became so popular right away, probably on the back of the popularity of Superman,
yep.
and those superheroes that it was like, okay,
Sure.
let's make it about Batman, right?
Yeah.
So that's when they came out. World War II ended. And around, 45, 46, people actually got tired of the superheroes, right? They had like a 6-7 year run where they were super popular. World War II ended, but then just the tastes of everybody went more towards horror comic books, romance comic books, mystery comic books, and all that for the next.
Westerns too, right?
Maybe to an extent.
Because that's kind of where the kids were going at the end of World War II anyway. They were kind of, Buck Rogers and that was... Howdy Doody was real big, at the end of World War II, going into the 50s. It was more about Westerns.
Yeah.
interesting. Okay.
Yeah. And so that's kind of the way it was for the next 15, 16, 17 years until a young Stan Lee got together with some other folks and came up with a bunch of superheroes that really changed the game.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah,
And so Stan Lee, I just wanted to talk about him for a minute because I feel like you can't really talk about comic books without talking about Stan Lee and his contributions to the medium.
Absolutely. Because whether you're a Marvel fan or not, you can't deny the cultural impact that Stan Lee, just as a person, has had on our culture.
I think he's seen at the head of the table, if you're asking me.
Oh, absolutely.
Oh,
even
for sure.
Being a DC fan.
All the characters that are directly that he directly contributed to. He didn't necessarily create every single character by himself, but he was on that team. Him and Jack Kirby and
Ditko and
Stan Ditko. Steve,
Ditko.
whatever.
Thank you for that. About time we get Rob. We gotta get Rob sometime.
Anyway, so those are the guys. That brought forth, just teams and legions of superheroes that we still talk about to this day.
Right.
You know what I mean? They've been reinvented, 30 times over, but those are the guys that we still talk about, and they've become timeless, almost legendary.
Oh,
you know what I mean?
100%.
At this point,
They're going to be there. They're folklore.
Yeah.
At this point, I think there are generations, kind of folklore, right? But Stan Lee, I don't know if y'all know this, but he got into comic books when he was 17 years old. That's when he became a on the staff of Timely Comics. So this is pre-Marvel. He was so young, 17, right?
Yeah.
At the age of 19, the publisher of the comic book appreciated his work so much they made him editor. So he's been editor of Marvel since he was 19 years old in the early 40s, right? Then World War II happens. He goes into the Army. He is still the editor of the comic book while in the Army. They're sending him notes on comic books and storylines and whatnot. And he's writing up his notes, and he sends them back to them. It's just back and forth, right? And so then that continues on until the 60s when he was honestly burned out, right? He was kind of tired. The comic books had kind of gone downhill, and he was getting burned out on it. But then he decided, you know what, screw it. I need to write about what I care about instead of what's popular. And that's when he started having the ideas with these other guys about these comic heroes. And so we're talking about he was a co-creator of Spider-Man, X-Men, Iron Man, Thor, Avengers,
Fantastic Four.
Fantastic Four was the first family of Marvel, right?
Yeah.
Black Panther, all these guys, Doctor Strange, like he was co-creator of all these guys, right? So it's insane the impact he had. So that's why he deserves the cameos in all those MCU
sure.
movies.
Yeah,
that
for
he did.
sure.
You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
So
And what's crazy before you get into what you're going to say, Rob, is just that you don't even have to be a comic book fan, but people don't know anything about comic books know of Stan Lee.
Sure.
Which that's the kind of impact that guy made.
Pop culture.
yeah. I mean that. Even if you're not a fan, you know who Stan Lee is. You know that what his name is associated with. At the bare minimum, you know that. You know what I mean? So anyway, so go continue your take us down this timeline there.
So, well, I mean, really, that's it as far as, talking about timelines, there's a couple of different periods of comic books, right? There's the Golden Age, which you'll hear about, which was the early 40s, which was when Superman came out, Batman, Flash and all them. Really more DC characters, Captain America to an extent and all that, but really the popular ones were Superman and Batman and yada yada. And then there was a Silver Age, and that was really that Stan Lee era, the 60s that came out with all those guys, the Spider-Mans and yada yada yada. Really, those are the big ones, right? The collectors these days, Silver Age comic books are the big ones, right? The first appearance of all those guys in the 60s and the very early 70s. Honestly, Golden Age comic books are so valuable, most people can't afford them.
Yeah,
The Nicolas Cages
Yeah,
will buy
yeah.
their Action Comics #1.
Yeah, every once in a while you'll see an Action Comics #1 like pulled out of somebody's basement, or something like that.
Right.
That's half eaten by a rat and still sell for like $50,000 or some shit.
Absolutely. Have y'all ever heard the story of Nicolas Cage in the Action Comics #1?
Remind me.
Yeah, no.
So that was his pride joy. He's a huge Superman fan.
Tim Burton
Huge.
cast him as Superman in his Superman movie that never got made.
Did he?
Yep.
Okay. He voiced Superman in one of the. Have you ever seen Teen Titans Go?
No.
No, I know of it.
You know
but-
of it?
yeah.
Okay, so it's a really silly cartoon. I actually think it's hilarious,
Yeah.
but they did a movie about it a few years ago, and Nicolas Cage voiced Superman.
Oh, yeah?
Oh yeah, and
Good
he
for
was
him.
all over it. So anyway, he bought a copy of Action Comics, like a 9.0, which we'll talk about the grading here in a little bit, and he had a party where he hung it over his fireplace, right? It was just like sitting there. And of course someone stole it.
Oh my god.
Why wouldn't they?
It's like,
Come on.
That's like a $1 million comic,
book.
yeah.
And it's just like, oh my God, why would you put that there? Why? So
That's because it's
just-
Nicolas Cage.
I know. I love that. I kind of love it. It's so
Just
Nicolas
because
Cage.
it's Nicolas Cage,
Exactly. It checks out.
I mean, geez.
But-
Well,
Anyway.
what's his real name again? Coppola?
Yeah.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, he's a Coppola. That's he
Now that you say it, that sounds
Luke Cage
familiar.
is like that's why he was going for the Nicolas Cage. Luke Cage was like his
Yeah.
favorite comic book. Like
Interesting. I didn't know
super-
Yeah,
that.
you didn't know? Yeah,
he's a nephew of Francis Ford.
Francis Ford
that-
Coppola.
yeah.
Yeah, he didn't want to encroach on his uncle's name, so he made a stage name, and it was Nicholas. He pulled the Nicholas off of something else, also.
I forget.
I forget, but
That's
yeah,
awesome.
the Cage is from Luke Cage.
Okay.
I did
Wow.
know that. Yeah,
I did not. That's
Yeah.
so awesome. So the next thing I got, that's it for the timeline stuff. It's like, what makes a comic book valuable, right? I mean, what is it? What to you guys? What would make a comic book
relevancy, like you know what I mean. To me, like what makes a comic book, or what would make a comic book valuable to me is like I would pay extra than probably it would be selling it was worth to get my hands back on another one of those trade paperbacks of the Return of Superman, because it meant something to me.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Like, and my favorite characters from back in the day, like those were characters that I grew up with that were my favorites. I've been some of my favorite characters. Captain America has always been one of my favorite characters. Scarlet Witch has always been one of my favorite characters. Doctor Strange, and just kind of old school characters like that. Those to me, those would be the ones that would be worth money, that I would think would be worth money. But that's not necessarily what causes a comic book to be valuable,
No,
right?
no.
I mean, it's not just the nostalgia factor.
Sure.
That's part of it, but I think like it comes in waves. Like the first era of comics, obviously, is the introduction of new characters. You got your, Captain America, Spider-Man's, whatever. Now it seems like in the modern age, you got new characters. That's going to increase value if there's a new character introducing. Also, it feels like and what I feel is like now you got like artists that do variant covers, like Jock that does a variant cover. People are gonna want to buy that and hold on for a couple of years, and it's gonna skyrocket. Then you got story arcs like like right now, like today or this past Wednesday, Superman Son of Kal-El came out, and it has John Kent kissing another guy. People, me included, picked up like 4 copies of it just to have it.
Just in case. Yeah. Just in case.
I also picked up like 4 copies of Batman Urban Legends, which has Tim Drake kissing a guy. And people, the media blows it up. But because of that, people are buying more of it.
Sure.
And it did sell for about like $60 because it ran out of the first print. Jeez. But now it dropped down a little bit. But no telling in the future that's going to skyrocket. Maybe, who knows?
Maybe.
But right. But that's the I guess what everybody's wanting to get is it's not just the new introduction of new characters, but the story arc and where the direction it's going as well.
Sure.
Apparently.
Sure.
But yeah, I don't know.
No, you're right. Everyone's speculating on what might be popular, but really 10, 15, 20 years from now, right? Like you're buying those 4 copies and you're just going to sit on them and you're just going to wait and see. What's that?
If I am, I mean, they'll tell you. I mean, I may have a bulk sale and here have whatever. You know, I go through those phases. I shouldn't, but
you really shouldn't. Because, look, a comic book takes up this much space. Like,
but if you
in
have
your
a whole
house,
bunch
you know
of them, man. Like right now, I'm currently reading stories and I need to stop because I'm like, shit. It's taking up a lot of shelf space.
Is
now.
it? Okay.
I'm at
All
that point right now.
All right, fair
It
enough.
can't be taking up that much shelf space.
It's okay, whatever. I mean, it's taking up some shelf space.
So predominantly it is first appearances, right? Like
Yeah, I
that's
think
the big dollar
predominantly, yeah, for
stuff
sure,
of
for sure.
First
characters. It is
appearances
first
of characters that become legendary.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. And like you were saying, like current stuff of a new character shows up, Iron Man's grandson or whatever, people will buy the fuck out of it just on the off chance that character ends up in a Marvel movie and that movie blows up and that becomes a big deal and it spikes the value of the comic
Ultimate
book,
Fallout number 4.
Right,
The introduction.
Miles Morales.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
And no one knew about that, but then people bought them up and now guess what?
And that money's worth a shit ton of money. You know,
Right now,
that book's worth a shit ton of money. You know, absolutely. But it's not just first appearances, like y'all said, but it's also first time a famous artist does artwork on a comic book, like you said in Jock. You know, Jock. That stuff is more about variant covers, so that's become something that's taken off over the last like 10, 15 years. That wasn't such a big deal 50 years ago in comic books, right? Back then it was, John Romita Sr. starts doing artwork on Spider-Man's. Those, Spider-Man, which was Spider-Man number 39. That is a highly valued comic book, right? It could be because it was his first artwork on there. Nowadays, it's not so much about, the general comic book, but if they put out variants, which is limited releases of, Avengers #1, they released 10,000 copies of Avengers #1, not so valuable, but they release only 100 copies of one of the variants, which is drawn by Jock or whoever.
Yeah.
That's a big deal.
That's a big deal.
That's the one everyone's collecting because there's only so many of them, right? So that's also valuable. And then also just key storylines, like the Infinity Gauntlet was a 4-issue run back in the 90s, which was part of the basis of Infinity War.
Yep,
right.
Absolutely.
And when Infinity War came out, it spiked the value of Infinity Gauntlet.
But right now, where's it at, though? Where's that series at? It
whole-
kind of went down a little bit, no?
It did. Of course it does. Once the movie came out and everyone got off that high of, oh my God, this is awesome.
Yeah.
It came down just like everything does, and it could go up again. You never know, depending on what happens with those books,
Yeah, and I mean, we're getting references to, back to Thanos now, so that'll probably, spike things up depending on kind of how Phase 4 goes. We'll kind of see how as they introduce. I mean, honestly, it's amazing that the MCU started the way that it did with a B-list comic book character, but a B-list comic book character that was just so integral to every single storyline that he's become an A-list comic book character. Absolutely. Talking about Iron Man. Iron Man was never a good comic. It was he was integral to a lot of different storylines, tying into like different Black Panther stuff and like tying in with Fantastic Four and starting the Avengers and things like that. But he was it was always Captain America was above that, and Spider-Man and Fantastic Four were above even that. But I mean, it's just amazing to me that to roll the dice on Iron Man. And that's what took off. I mean, I get it. I mean, I've seen the movie. It's amazing.
It's really
You know
good.
what I mean? Like it still holds up. Like,
Yeah,
you know what I
absolutely
mean?
it does.
Now, if the movie wasn't amazing, do you think the comic will hold its weight, or the character will hold its weight the way it is now?
No. I'll tell you. I will tell you right now. Had that movie, people don't remember this. That's extra credit scene with Nick Fury talking
Mind-blowing.
about the
Oh, the
Avengers
Avengers,
Initiative.
yeah.
Was not in the theatrical release of that
Oh,
movie.
really?
That was added for the DVD release because they didn't know.
Yeah.
Like, how do you roll the dice on the Avengers
true.
Initiative when you don't even know how well that movie's going to
So
do?
their anticipation, this was a one and done movie. And that's it.
They were hoping. I mean, they had to pay John Favreau had to pony up the dough to insure Robert Downey Jr. for that movie.
God bless that guy, Favreau.
Yeah,
He saved
And-
he saved a whole bunch of franchises.
dude. He has John Favreau. I mean, what he's done for like. I'd probably suck that guy's dick. You know, just if you were just going based off of like what we owe people. I mean, what he's done just for Marvel and Star Wars. I mean, come on.
Just
I
to think that he played linebacker in The Replacements, to where he was from that
Yeah.
that role to where he's at now. Like Jesus Christ.
have you seen him in PCU?
No.
Oh my God! Go watch. That's everybody's homework. Go watch PCU,
There you go. Okay.
and then look at John Favreau and be like, how did he get from that to this?
There he is.
You know what I mean?
Can I give you a homework assignment? Can
No.
you give me a beer?
Yeah,
Please,
Okay,
thank you.
fine. All right, Ryan, where are we going next on this list?
Let's see. What do I have next? Next, I have records for values. All right, I got a long list.
Oh, there we go. All right, I need 2 beers now.
You want to talk about records for values, or you want to talk about grading first, so that we can talk
Oh, there you go.
about why
That's-
they're.
yeah,
I can do that. I can talk about grading. At what point do we want to show the books I brought?
We can start that now.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah,
Thank you,
Rob,
sir.
you can beer me as well, please.
Oh, yeah.
Por favor.
I used to
I
have
think this
that
one's
book,
not
man.
frozen.
Gracias. We'll find out.
There's only one way to find out. That's how my
If
son.
it starts exploding, then.
We're good.
So, we will. I set up a comic book cam. So, this is one of the comic books that Ryan brought for us to show off.
Sexy. Hey, you know that there's a glare over the grade itself.
Yeah. I mean, Ryan.
There it is. Oh, I didn't even know it's a 9.8. Nice.
Yeah, that's perfection.
Maybe
So
tell us
love it.
us about this comic book. What the grading system is. How you why it gets that grade, and kind of. You don't have to tell us what you paid for it, so somebody doesn't jump you in the parking lot.
right. So in the late 90s, CGC was started. And what they did was they realized there was a place in the market to determine how good the quality of a comic book actually was, right? Because it matters so much in the industry of collecting comic books. If a comic book is perfect, it's worth a hell of a lot more than if it's a beat up piece of shit. And CGC recognized that, and they said, okay, we will start grading comic books independently. And so that's what you're seeing right here. It's not just a comic book by itself, which would be called a raw book. It's in a case, right? It has been reviewed by someone. This is actually not CGC. I have a CGC book, which I'll show you in a sec. So CGC is the predominant company when it comes to grading comic books. If they say it's damn near perfect, which is a 9.8, that is damn near perfection, then it is a 9.8, and it will be valued as such, right? The rating system goes literally from 0.5 to a 10.0. 10.0 is incredibly freaking rare, right? 10.0s and 9.9s, they really don't exist. 9.8 is really considered a perfect comic book. So that's what this is. This is an X Factor number 6, which is the first appearance of Apocalypse. This came out in 1986. This is one of my favorite comic books just because of the cover, because of the first appearance of Apocalypse. Apocalypse's face is right there on the cover. So I really like this book. It's a 9.8.
Do you think that this book would be worth more money if they hadn't fucked up Apocalypse in the X-Men movie?
100%.
Yeah.
I do. I really
Now, did the
at least-
value of this book spike when that movie was coming out in
Absolutely.
anticipation of
I think
that?
so. I would think so.
So I wasn't collecting at the time. I would say yes.
Mm-hmm.
It's not only when the movie comes out. It's frankly as soon as it's known, Apocalypse is going to be the big bad of that movie. Then bam, the comic book prices spike. Right?
You know where that term came from?
I do. You told me last time I was here. Okay. Was it Buffy? Is that
Yeah,
right?
yeah. That's a big bad is a Joss Whedon Buffy the Vampire Slayer term. So if you ever hear anybody use that, no, but not a lot of people know that's what that's from. So
There you go.
That's my little piece of trivia.
It's whack. I bought a Raw book right before the movie came out on eBay for $80, and I thought that was steep as hell.
Yeah.
Because that was right before the movie comes out. But then I was looking at them right now. And I think well, not right now, about maybe a year or two ago. I think I dropped down $40. You know,
It just depends.
you know.
Conditions,
But it wasn't in great
everything.
condition. It wasn't in great condition.
That's the
That's
thing. Okay, so this book, I'll just tell y'all, I paid $180 for this book, but once again, it is graded. It is damn near perfection, right? If you bought this book and it had a bunch of creases on it, if it had a fold, if it had spine ticks, if it wasn't graded, you're absolutely right, Jake. You could get one for $30.
Yeah.
You know what I'm
for
saying?
sure.
Grading is everything, you know. But contrast this, Rob. Can I switch this out with the other one?
Yeah, swap it out.
All right, let me.
So just for peace of mind, if you were to go out like shopping for comic books, you can actually submit these comic books and you can get a big, make
Pull
a
it
huge
down a
profit
little so you can
margin.
see the grade on it.
Because if you find a comic that's like in great condition and you bought it for $30, and like in my case, I bought one for $30. Let's say like I bought one for $30, and I took it to CGC, and they graded a 9.2 or something. I could make a big profit off that. You know what I mean? So
Yeah,
you can actually
if it's
submit
graded.
these books if it's graded.
That's what a lot of people do too. They won't buy something unless they think, "Holy shit, I'm getting it for a deal where I can flip it, get it graded, and then turn a huge profit on that." A lot of people do that. Absolutely.
Yeah, Josh Stedham, our friend Josh Stedham,
Yeah.
does that. So
Yeah.
he buys in bulk. He'll buy like 300 comics, and then he'll go in and sort through them and see what he has, and it's like, okay, like one or two of those he'll send off and pay the money to get graded, and then sell the rest of them in bulk batches for like grab bags or whatever, $25 for 5 books or something.
He's
like
part
that,
of
you
the
know what I mean?
problem.
And make his money back. Make his money back on what he paid to have those comics graded, and then sit on them until he thinks they're worth some money,
for sure.
and then sell them, and turn them for a couple $1,000 worth of profit.
Absolutely.
So yeah, and that's and apparently you can find comics that have like B stock that people have had like they'll just be like, oh yeah, we have batches, and we cleaned out this warehouse, and like there's all these. We don't know
Sometimes
what's
you could
in
just
it
get
kind of
super
thing.
lucky, man. I'm gonna tell you a quick story. There was one time on eBay, I bought a Amazing Spider-Man 300 from an estate sale. They did not know what they had, and I bought it for $50. Like it was like $52. I got it, and the pictures looked pretty good. It wasn't a 9.8, but it was definitely at least a 9.0, maybe 8.5. They shipped it, and when I got it, it was in a fucking catalog mailer with no cardboard, no nothing.
I remember this. The story gets better.
I'm like, come on, man, you got to be kidding me! Like I was so super pissed, but then I got to thinking, like I bought it for $52, whatever.
So just so our audience knows,
there
Amazing
you go.
Spider-Man number 300 is the first appearance of Venom.
Venom, yes.
Even though that came out in the mid 90s, they printed a shit ton of them.
Yeah.
But the character is so popular that comic book is worth a ton.
It
of
is
money.
worth a ton of money, man. So I got
How much money are we talking about? A ton of money.
I don't even know right now.
$30,000?
No, not that.
No.
That's not a ton of money then.
Okay, a grand. A perfect copy
Yeah.
would be well over a grand.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying?
Okay.
I bought it for $52. It was in great condition. And they shipped it in a catalog with no mailer, with no cardboard, no nothing. And I was pissed. I opened it up, got it out. I'm like, oh shit, it survived, and it's like in great condition. I was so happy. I stored it away. I put it on in my stash, my counter with my keys. That's what I'm going home with. I'm looking everywhere. The day continues. I'm looking everywhere for my mailer, my comic. I'm like, what the fuck is that? And my coworker, we like to do pranks on each other. And I'm like, hey, have you seen it? Like, what are you talking about? What are you talking about? He's looking down the whole time. We're like, I don't know what you're talking about. He's looking down, and it's folded over in the trash bin.
No.
Yeah, and I'm like, you gotta be fucking kidding me, man. And I opened it, and there's a nice little crease, a nice fucking crease, because he did not know what it was.
Still,
We played pranks on him,
fuck
on
that.
each other. I
You
know.
don't-
Fuck
you
that dude. I bought it for $52.
now it's worth 25.
Not even probably. I don't know. It probably is. It's still probably worth $52 at the time, right?
Sure.
It was,
No,
it was
it
a
is.
crease,
It
but
is. But that
I was pissed.
severely tanks the value
Absolutely,
of a book.
absolutely.
You know,
So,
talking about that's a great story. I love that story. It's a terrible story, but I love that
That's,
story.
that's a terrible fucking
Yeah,
story.
yeah, no, it
But it coincides
So
to what the
let's-
ratings.
absolutely
Yeah.
100%. You know,
Let's talk about grading. What makes a grade, and how, who grades them? You said there's multiple different people that,
Sure.
that grade them, and the way that they grade them is differently. So, one is more prestigious than the other.
absolutely 100%.
So what is this book that you have here?
So this is CGC. This is the company I was talking about.
creme de la creme, right?
This really is. These were the first guys. They established themselves in the market, and so now everyone values CGC graded books higher than anyone else. So this is a 5.0 CGC. That's going to be valued a little bit more than a 5.0 of other grading companies, right?
Would it be like more than a 6.0 of somebody else?
It depends on the book.
Okay.
It really depends. Okay, so I'll go back to the other one here in a second because that wasn't CGC, but this is a 5.0. This is an old ass comic book, right? This is an X-Men number 15, right? So I know you can't really tell from the video, but it's beat up along the top edge. It's beat up along the spine. You know, the guys were talking about spine ticks earlier.
Yeah.
It's got some of those. You know, so it's not perfect. And if I'm going to flip it over to the back. Hold on.
Yeah, go ahead.
There you go.
So yeah, so you can actually see it on the video. In the top left corner, there's a crease up there, right? And it's just tanned. This paper is just browned, right? Like, I mean, it's a 50-plus-year-old comic book, so most are going to have that, and this one does. But that disqualifies it from being a 9.8, a 9.0, an 8.0, 7.0, 6.0. So CGC determined this is a 5.0, and so it's going to be valued accordingly, right?
Absolutely. Now, they also, and I did not know about this up until I started getting back into collecting, that they can repurpose this stuff. They can like clean it up. There's I don't know if you know anything about that, Ryan, where they can actually take it apart of the capsule and actually do like I forgot what it's called, but they put a little like some sort of ointment on it to get make the pages white instead of like the tan pages. You ever heard anything about that?
Oh, I've heard of restoration.
restoring
Absolutely.
it? Oh, okay.
So it's really getting into the weeds, but there's different kinds of categorizing these grades, right? Like if CGC looks at a book and they decide, oh wow, someone's touched up this cover, they've added paint to it, or they've done trimming is very common. You know, if you see a bunch of damage to the top of the book, someone might trim the top of it so it doesn't look damaged. Well, that's restoration, right? So they'll actually give it a different colored label. This is blue, which means it's a universal. It hasn't been restored, right? If CGC determines it's been restored, they'll give it a
green or something like that.
Is it green or purple?
It's
Purple. It's purple. Purple is restored, right? And so that affects the value. Some
sure.
people say it's restored. I don't want that shit. And so it's not anywhere near as valuable as an unrestored. A 9.6 restored is not as valuable as a 9.6 unrestored, right?
Sure, absolutely.
So that's where that comes in. But then there's also, if you just clean a book, it's called pressing.
Pressing,
right?
that's what I was getting at. Yes,
So pressing's different than actual restoration. Restoration is painting, skimming, and all that. But pressing is just where they clean it.
Yeah.
You know, they won't actually add anything to it. They'll just try to clean it, right? Get rid of some
And
of
they
the
try to get
dirt.
the spine ticks out too by pressing it.
They
as well.
can. Some they can. Not, and this is really deep in the weeds. But
I'm sorry.
No, you're fine. But there's things that actually where, you know, there's creases and stuff where the color of the cover is actually flecked off. That's called color breaking creases. And there's ones that haven't, where the paint hasn't flicked off. Those can be repaired and it looks brand new. So there could have been a fold. If someone presses it and it's non-color breaking, it looks brand new. It can still be a 9.8 blue label, right? They won't give it a purple label,
right?
So it just
pressing,
depends.
yeah.
But anyway, before we move on, going back to this X Factor 6, this is CBCS. I at least wanted to give them some props. So one of the founders of CGC, he didn't like the way CGC was doing things, so he broke off and started his own company, CBCS, which is what this is, right? And so they're relatively newer. They've still been around 15, 20 years or whatever, but you know, they were after CGC. So their stuff isn't held in quite as high a regard as CGC, but it's still up there. I love this book. If you looked it over, you couldn't find dick wrong with it, right?
Oh, yeah,
To
for
me,
sure, yeah.
it's perfect
Yeah.
looking, you know? So, but anyway, there are some subtle, and there's other companies too, PGX and whatnot,
that's
that
right,
aren't
PGX.
quite as highly regarded as CGC.
For sure.
So, let's. You said you had, you brought a list of like sale prices, like record sales of. I'm assuming auctions of comics. Is that right?
Mostly, yeah.
Okay.
Mostly, yeah.
So let's hear some of these auction prices of what they sell for.
All right, so let's go straight for the gusto. What
Yeah.
do y'all think and you've looked at my notes. So
I
I
didn't look at your notes.
You didn't look that closely?
No, not really.
Because you told me they were badass notes, and so now we just determined that
Well,
you
but
liked
this
it.
wasn't on the sheet that you sent me.
Was it not?
No. You
Pretty
just
sure
had
it
an
was.
outline.
Pretty sure it was. Okay, so let's have some guesses here.
Okay, what we got?
Most valuable comic book.
Action
of all
Comics
time.
#1.
That
gotta be.
or DC 27 maybe.
Okay, so Action Comics #1 is the second highest.
Really?
Sold for $3.25 million earlier this year.
Wow.
Okay.
Wow.
Like I said, this prices have spiked recently, so it's
Yeah.
almost kind of hard to find the most recent shit because it's so new.
Right.
But there was one comic book that sold for more than Action Comics #1. It was not DC
It wasn't
27.
okay.
When did you take Comics 27?
What is it?
It's a Silver Age book.
It's a Silver Age. Hold on.
Really?
Let me see what you
Yeah.
got. Come on. Let me see.
First appearance of the Silver Surfer?
No. It's probably gonna be
It's a
X-Men.
big boy. It's a big boy.
yeah,
X-Men
1 maybe. Ah, geez, I don't know.
It's Amazing Fantasy 15.
Of course. Why would I not think about that? Of course it is.
First appearance
yes,
of Spider-Man.
Yes, of course it is.
Oh,
Damn
yeah.
it.
Right. So come on. I need a guess of the money.
So what was the first one? What was
3.25 was number 2.
3.25.
I'll go
I wasn't
5.6.
saving the fives.
And what now? It's
Okay.
3.6.
3.6.
3.6
still.
million.
Oh, okay.
Amazing-
So
But
not
for a
that much
Silver
off.
Age book,
Yeah,
that
that's
surprised me.
expensive.
It is a 9.6. It wasn't even a 9.8.
9.8.
Which,
Well,
but
yeah.
but here's the deal: for books that old, 9.6. I don't even know if there is a 9.8 of Amazing Fantasy 15, which is the first appearance of Spider-Man. There may not be. You know, but anyway, there's that's pretty much unprecedented. Like I've got a list here of the top. 20 or so most valuable comic books of all time.
Let me see if I can rattle off like at least the books that are in there as the
absolutely.
most valuable ones.
Let's do it.
All right, so first appearance of the Silver Surfer is probably in there. No,
That's Fantastic 448.
Maybe
no.
Hulk 181.
Hulk. Yeah,
It's not.
No?
No.
okay.
Wow,
So
that's-
first appearance
most of these
of
are
Wolverine.
old ass books from
oh,
the
you're
60s.
talking- okay.
Wolverine
Well,
didn't come out till the 70s.
Avengers
You're
one.
right.
Avengers 1 is number 15, 274 grand.
There'll be Batman 1. Has to be on there.
Batman 1 number 6, 567 grand.
Who's your next guess? Because I'm all out. Because I was going Silver Age with most of these, according to like what was coming out.
I mean, it'll be,
There's some
stuff,
Silver Age shit on here. There is some.
I mean, then you got like a probably Amazing Spider-Man.
First appearance of the Punisher is
Oh
probably
yeah,
up there.
129.
Yeah,
Amazing Spider-Man
no, it's
129?
not on here.
Not on
but,
there?
I mean, that is a very valuable comic book. But so you've got. Here, I'll just go ahead and tell you that you got like.
Put that paper down
Like,
out
shut
of
the
your
fuck up. I'm just
face.
going to tell you guys now.
Does that help? So X-Men #1, number 7. That's
Yeah, you go.
492 grand. 492 grand.
I got
You
classic
that shit.
X-Men #1. Does that count? Classic X-Men #1.
Dude, bro.
It's the same cover.
Bro, that shit worth like $20.
I know. It's that like $10, probably $5. But yeah,
Incredible Hulk #1, 326 grand.
Yeah.
Fantastic Four #1, 300 grand.
Iron Man 1. Or what? Not Iron Man. It's
That was Tales of Suspense
Tales of
39.
Suspense, yeah,
That's
go.
number
Yeah,
9 at
yeah.
375 grand.
Really,
That's
Iron
first-
the Tales of Suspense #9 is in the top.
39. Yeah, it's number 9 at 375.
That
book
book
is.
used to be nothing.
It was
before,
Robert Downey
before
Jr.
2008. Like that
crazy.
book would have sold for nothing.
That's
Like
crazy.
it wasn't worth shit.
imagine like someone's grandma getting rid of give him to the neighbor, knowing I had that book. That sucks.
It's insane. That is. You never know what someone's going to do. That's all it takes
Exactly,
is
yeah.
a movie spiking and making a character ridiculously popular. Look at Black Panther, Fantastic Four number 52. It's not on this list, but the value just spiked
right,
ridiculously
that's
after
true,
the
yeah.
popularity.
And
of
after
that
Chadwick
movie.
Boseman died, it went up even more.
Yeah, I mean that's
it's gonna happen.
anyway.
Anyway, what else is on that
What's
list?
on that list?
That's most of the stuff that people would know. I mean, a lot of this stuff is like just really old ass shit. All American Comics number 16. I can't remember what that is off the top. That's DC. That might be, one of the early
Flash or
Justice
something
League
like that,
movie
Justice League.
comic books. Showcase number 4 is number 20. Showcase number 4 was the first comic book of the Silver Age. That is the book that is considered what ushered in the Silver Age, which was in 1956, right? That was when DC said, oh God, we're not doing our characters justice. We need to give them more like serious storylines. So Showcase number 4 was when they introduced the new Barry Allen Flash. Right?
Okay.
That was with that, So that's really most of what I'm seeing here. I'm not seeing any first Doctor Stranges and stuff like that. Wiz Comics number 2. That might have been the first Wonder Woman. I can't remember offhand. But anyway, that type of stuff.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Long shot number 3 is not on there.
Put that one in the shot. Let's
Bro, show what you got, man.
So
It's
this
been
is
sitting there for a
so
while.
so I got this for Paul actually, and this is a raw long shot number 3. You want to throw that in?
now tell me what
The reason why I got that for Paul.
No, but why is it what you consider it raw? Because it's not graded.
It's
not
not
in a
graded.
Case?
That's
Okay.
correct. Yeah. It's not in a case. It's not
Touch
graded.
not, lest ye be touched.
But I'm gonna leave that here, so whenever Paul shows up again,
No,
it's
you
for him.
don't-
The
don't.
reason why I got that
He
is
might
because
not ever show back up here.
it's the first appearance, and can y'all guess what the first appearance of whom it may be?
In a long shot comic?
I don't know.
First appearance of hold on, I know who this is. I know this one. First appearance of Mojo.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Oh, nice.
It's a $30 book, and obviously it has some
Okay.
wear, but I think he would appreciate that. So, first appearance of Mojo. Which I never read it. I didn't care to read it.
Mojo's a garbage character.
All it
mean,
takes is one movie. All it takes is one movie.
But when you
I
get it
don't know,
graded,
dude.
when you get it,
Mojo's a pretty garbage character.
No, it
I don't-
really is.
Even if you throw him in a fucking movie. I mean, he's basically like the alien version of what's his name? Jerry Maguire's character, Tom Cruise, when he played the agent guy that was all fat. You remember? You know what I mean?
Oh, from Tropic Thunder?
Yeah. He's
that's hilarious.
yeah. Mojo is basically that character.
Scorched Earth, motherfucker.
Yes,
Oh,
he is basically that. Like they based that character off of Mojo, basically, because
Yeah.
it was. I mean, that was all on
didn't.
like the. That was like Battle World, you know what I mean? That became like kind of morphed into like the Contest of Champions thing, you know. So, and you know, at the end of Secret Wars and all that kind of bullshit, you know what I mean? But yeah, I mean, yeah, Paul has this hard on for Mojo.
Although it
for
is
some
a
reason.
trash can character, you get it graded. It's going to say long shot number 3, and then underneath that, it's going to say first appearance. And people love that first appearance of
Absolutely.
whatever
It's
character
true.
it may be.
Absolutely.
So I mean, and it's going to look nice because think about the CGG slabs. It looks nice to present them to people. It
100%.
looks badass. You
Yeah,
know?
if you, how much does it cost to get a comic graded?
For a comic book after 1974, it's actually like $22.
But you got to have a subscription to
You
CGC,
do,
right?
but it's pretty cheap. Like
Yeah.
it's really not that bad. Actually, you can
you have
get
another one?
That's it. We're
All right.
That's what we
I'll
got.
make it work. Never mind.
there's no more.
Okay, all right.
Continue on over.
What was I talking about that blew my mind?
Go ahead.
Where-
You were talking about the fees to get them slabbed.
All right, I'll vamp. Yeah, that's right.
Right,
Okay.
yeah.
So for more recent comic books like this long shot number 3, it'd be more like $25 or so. Yeah, there is a subscription, but the base level is free. The ability to submit them to CGC, you can do that for free, and it's going to cost you, $25, $26.
So it doesn't cost more like the value of the comic.
Pre-1974, it does. That's kind of their golden cutoff year. I think that
What is it about 1974?
really, frankly, that's when most of the valuable comic books came out, is prior to 1974. Like your first Punisher, your first who was the other one? We said Wolverine. Those are all pre-1974.
Okay.
That just kind of arbitrary. It's very arbitrary, but that's kind of around the time the Silver Age ended. Getting into the Copper Age of comic books when things were just less valuable. There were less like super relevant first appearances, right?
Right.
Pre-1974, you're going to be paying a cut of what the comic book is valued at. So it's going
Really?
to cost more. Yes. But that's the thing, the speculators, or if you just happen to come, like you said, have the grandmother who has the Hulk #1 in her attic or whatever.
Yeah.
Well, you got that for free and it's worth tens of thousands of dollars. And so it's worth it to you to spend $1,000 to get it graded because it's going to be worth more than that. You know what I'm saying?
Well, I mean, I guess it's like one of those things like you hope it's going to be worth more than that. But I guess if you get one, like it's, did you just go in there and just you just have a random armful of shit?
I'm sorry, there's no more Villa Lights.
You can be my hero, baby.
This is you.
I don't know what that is. I wouldn't drink it.
Holy shit.
Our car or
Pills. I saw pills.
I don't know that you're going to like that IPA.
This is an IPA? It says
No,
long
Jake.
Sorry,
Oh.
there's no light beer.
Yeah, there's not, I mean, there's a,
Me too, brother.
there's a,
You're
there's
good, man.
there was some Crawford Bach in the door.
I missed it. Sorry.
Sorry. The refrigerator in the podcast studio.
Yeah.
Just so everybody knows. The refrigerator in the podcast studio. God damn it.
That's all right. Oh, shit, that was on.
Dude, I just opened it. Like, I didn't shake it up before I got here.
Podcast gold.
Did I get that on film? Please tell me I got that on
y'all
film.
were on. I think so. I'm pretty
Take your
sure.
headphones off and go get a towel and clean that shit up.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
The refrigerator in here freezes beers.
Jesus.
And I can't figure out why. It's on the cold. It's on the warmest setting, and it freezes them solid.
That was
and he
fantastic.
pulled that out of. I don't know. He pulled this arc. Honestly, I don't have any idea how long that Art Car IPA has been in the refrigerator.
Oh, God.
Years, I'm guessing. At least 2 years. I haven't bought St. Arnold's beer in at least 2 years, so that's how old that is.
Oh, that's so good.
We drink typically.
Of course. Why
We
wouldn't
drink
you?
Eureka Heights. I'm trying to get this thing in focus. Obviously, you can see our favorites, the Buckle Bunny, the Mini Boss up here. And then, right over here behind Ryan, you see the nice Space Train logo on the door.
I didn't mean to get it on your shirt.
Did you really get it on me? You son of a bitch.
Feel that way? Like, I got to clean you, too.
Not on my plain black T-shirt.
My podcast table, my baby podcast table.
No, the table's lacquered. I'm cool with it. It's the carpet I'm worried
It's the
about.
electronics everywhere, right? I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'm worried about that. You did open it right over the top of that fucking $500 switcher.
You
So
didn't
that's
get on
cool.
it, though. Do you see it? You see
No,
it wet
I
at all?
don't.
Yeah, so where we're at. I'm sorry.
No, we were cool. We were
We were
talking
talking
about
shit about you.
Cool, man.
honestly.
Continue on, please.
we were talking about the cost of getting books graded.
yeah.
Right. And so, I mean, we pretty much wrapped that up. The only thing left that I have, is if you're trying to get into comic book collecting, where do you go to get comic
Yeah,
books?
yeah. That's a good point because honestly, like I wouldn't even like I am a collector, obviously. But like I got into collecting just by searching on eBay for stuff and not really like knowing what I was doing.
So,
So-
eBay is fantastic. It's funny because anytime you go into an actual comic book store and ask them about eBay, they'll shit all over it.
Yeah.
That's because they don't want you to buy on
course,
eBay. They
'cause
want
they-
you to
yeah.
buy from them, right?
course.
But if you know what to look for on eBay, you can get fantastic deals. I've gotten some of the best deals on eBay, right?
But then you can also get freaking like robbed from there.
Absolutely, 100%.
Because you ever heard of facsimile issues? Uh-huh. There was an Ultimate Fallout #4 that just came out a month ago, facsimile, and people were selling that shit on eBay for $400 or $500, and really it's only a $3.99 book, but it looks identical. The only difference between the original and the facsimile is that the date is in a different color. And if you don't catch that,
So it's basically a counterfeit book.
it's not
Well,
really
it's
it's
not.
a reissue, really, kind of. It's like a
No,
reissue.
what it is there's douchebags who try to pass it off as
Yes.
the original. It's not the comic book manufacturers themselves. They say this is a facsimile.
Yeah, exactly.
This ain't
It's just to have it in
original.
your collection to read
Right.
the story. That's all it's
Right.
for.
Yeah, but I mean, there's protections on eBay. If you're falsifying what you're selling, like you would have buyer
Not
protection.
not if you have multiple eBay accounts and you're just going to delete them.
Or if you just don't know. If you just don't, let me tell you a quick story about Pops. I hope he's still listening. So New Mutants '98 is the first appearance
yeah.
of Deadpool. So even though they made 1 million of this
Mm-hmm.
comic book, Deadpool is so goddamn popular that this comic book is worth a lot of money,
yeah.
right?
Oh, yeah.
A pristine copy of this thing is worth like $600
Easily.
Okay.
Easily.
So Pops wasn't aware of that the fact that there was my dad wasn't aware that there was a facsimile version of this, and he found it on eBay for like $10. And he's like, "God damn, guys, I found the deal of a lifetime. How many of this thing should I get?" And I'm looking at it, I'm like, "Pops,
Yeah, I know.
that's a facsimile, bro. I don't know how to tell you this, you know." And so he's like, "Oh shit," because you could tell because of the barcode.
Did the listing say that it was a facsimile?
I don't remember. It wasn't super obvious. If it did, it was buried in the description of the item or something like that, which they do to try to trick you.
And it is the barcode. You're right.
Right. So
Yeah.
facsimiles of barcodes from the 2010s plus are rectangular, right? They're very rectangular, whereas the originals from the 90s are closer to a square, right? They're slightly rectangular, like a fat, wide rectangle, but more square, boxy looking.
Okay.
If that makes sense. I don't have an example to show you, but once you've seen it, you know it, and
Right.
it's obvious.
But then even the numbers, they'll tell you what series it is and what issue of that series. So if it's volume 1, it'll be the first digit. Then the second digit will be the issue. So the Miles Morales one I was talking about had 111, which really that's automatically a facsimile because it was really the 4th issue. So it should have been 141. And the original has 14 something
Oh,
like that.
okay.
Gotcha.
But that sucks, man. I know that feeling like, oh, I scored something.
Deal. Yeah.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome.
Yeah, everybody wants to have that story of I got this fucking killer deal. You know what I mean?
Love you, Pops. So, but yeah, eBay is still, if you know
Oh,
what to
absolutely.
look for,
Yes.
eBay is a great source for deals because it is just the seller directly to the buyer. There's no middleman, right? The middleman is what jacks up the price every time. So having said that, go support your local comic book store
Yes.
if you can. You know, it's tough for comic book stores these days, right?
We have
sure.
been trying to get a sponsorship deal, or not even a sponsorship deal, just recognition from this comic book store that's right up the road here.
You talking about Comic Vault on 529? Fry Road?
I go there all the time.
No, it's
I like
on.
that one.
No, there's another one. It's on West and Highway 6.
8th Dimension?
It's not 8th Dimension.
that just
anymore.
opened up.
It's
A new
owned
one.
by Comic Vault. They own that shop now.
It
8th
used to be-
Dimension?
It used to be 8th Dimension.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
now
really?
it
They
closed
bought
down.
it. Yeah.
I would like to get in with them. Just throw our business cards on the thing. We'll throw a little logo like we have.
Hey, make it happen.
Like we have. Hold on, I'm trying to. This is really odd. See how our logo's here? We could throw Comic Vault's logo. You know. Over here underneath Jake, you know what I mean? And we could talk about them every episode, kind of like we do with Eureka Heights.
I used to know the owner. It's been a while.
It's Bullock.
I
something,
used to know the owner.
from 8th Dimension?
Yeah, yeah.
Jeremy.
Well, not from 8th Dimension, but Comic Vault, because they bought them.
Really? Okay.
They bought, yeah.
Okay, okay.
Super
I
nice
just recently
So
went
if
over there
you're-
because it's like my wife works at that school right across the street from it. And I go there, and I mean, they're cool people, man. And
Yeah,
they have
sure.
a lot of back issues. And
Sure,
that's-
they do. Yeah.
We should go in there. Do they play Dungeons and Dragons in there?
Absolutely. They do.
I would love to learn how to play Dungeons.
I
and
know
Dragons.
they play like Magic and those types. I don't know about Dungeons and Dragons specific. I could find
Ryan and I used to super nerd out in high school and play Magic the Gathering.
well,
Oh, yeah? Did you? Oh,
Yeah.
nice.
Tap, tap, tap. Yeah,
That mana, huh?
absolutely.
The mana did it for you?
Yeah, tapping that mana ass.
Tap that mana.
I don't know if we're closing it, but are you currently
We're
reading?
pretty close.
Are you
Yeah,
currently reading anything?
I'm not.
No, you're just soul collecting.
Yeah, really.
Okay.
Am. Yeah.
And you? No?
Fucking losers. I am currently reading.
Fucking losers.
Well, that's because
a
I have
little
a
harsh.
Marvel Unlimited
you go. There
subscription,
you go.
which I love. In the digital age, if you're in it for the stories and not the collecting, like I am,
Mm-hmm.
Marvel Unlimited, it's $100 a year. You get unlimited access on your iPad, computer, whatever, phone, to any issue they have, and they're arranged however you want to
Mm-hmm.
pull them. You know what I mean? So, like right now, I'm reading the Fear Itself storyline, which is
DC.
no, this is Marvel.
No, Fear. It's
Fear
Fear
Itself.
State. Fear State. I'm thinking Fear
You're
State.
thinking
Sorry.
Fear State
Sorry.
with Scarecrow.
You're right.
Fear Itself is when
Oh, the Odor's run. Yeah, I remember that.
I'm not reading anything current.
Yeah.
Fuck, who reads current shit? No, I'm yeah. This is the appearance of Unstoppable Colossus. Colossus
Yeah.
picks up the
Yep.
Sidorak gem
Yep.
from Juggernaut and becomes Unstoppable Colossus. It's a storyline that has to do with Odin and like the original All Fathers and the appearance. I forget the fucking bad guy's name. Anyway, it's an interesting story because the four hammers fall to Earth and they pick them. It requires all the characters to come together. The whole world is gripped in fear. And it's right after the destruction of Asgard, and they're trying to like rebuild Asgard on Earth, and it's a pretty cool story. It's a pretty cool storyline. I dig it. Like I've read the Infinity Gauntlet storyline. I've read most of the Phoenix Saga and stuff like that. So,
and you never know. I mean, it could be 5 years from now, it could be 6 years from now. Those comic books could become worth a lot more once they introduce the X-Men to the MCU. And they need somewhere
digital versions will be worth something.
They won't be worth nothing. But if you,
but you're absolutely right, man.
What if I print them out from FedEx?
So
what if I print them out and bind them really nicely and like make them and sell them?
It costs you nothing to do that. That's what I'll say.
It'll probably cost me about $5 a book. To print them out at FedEx and bind them. Binding's not cheap.
But when you go to Marvel Comics, it's probably like what $3.99, $4.99 a book. You just go buy.
It's getting up there, man.
Yeah, it's insane.
I read. You're a DC fan. What was it? It was the one where there was multiple Jokers. Have you seen that one?
No, you're not talking about. I mean, I'm
Is
barely
it
got
Jokers?
back into it.
Okay.
You're talking about with Scott Snyder. I forget. I don't know.
So there's a limited run where there were actually multiple Jokers, which was pretty interesting. I was like, oh shit! So that was the most recent thing I've read. That was a couple of years ago.
Oh yeah. I forgot what it was called. But no, I'm kind of dabbling back into it, and I'm realizing that this is an expensive hobby. When you're like reading, and then I'm at the comic book store and I see this title. I'm like, oh, that looks interesting. I pick it up and I got to continue reading it. Like right now, I'm reading Black Hammer, and it's a whole new
superhero.
Like a porno. And exactly, it does sound like it. But it's just when I read comics, like I look at the writer, like Scott Snyder. I was a huge fan of him whenever he was doing the New 52 Batman, and I try to follow his work. Now I picked up Black Hammer, and Jeff Lemire, he's the guy that created this whole universe, and it's just a whole new batch of superheroes thrown into trying to go rogue or hide their identity, and it's crazy, but it's very engaging. And then he creates this other comic called Maze Book. So I'm down this rabbit hole. I'm reading Black Hammer, then I'm into Maze Book, and I'm trying to follow everything that Jeff Lemire writes, and it's like, fuck, my pockets are not deep enough for this hobby. But I noticed that, I gave you the Darth Vader #1 when it came out.
Yeah, it's on my Darth Vader tribute shelf up there.
It's kind of hidden on the side. But I mean, I just decided
you can see it when you walk in, though.
When you walk in, very cool. Okay, you're right. But I mean, I just realized, like, I was looking it up, like, okay, how much? I bought a whole bunch of them when they first came out, and it's kind of creeping in price. But
hold on. Wait a second.
Yes.
So you're telling me you gave me that as I thought this was like, you saw this in a store and you were like, I was thinking of Rob because he likes Darth Vader.
Darth Vader Pez.
And you gave me that, and I thought that meant something.
Now
you're telling me you have fucking 30 of them, and you're just like, I think Rob might like this. It's a 99-cent comic book.
This one fell out of the truck on my way home.
Rob.
I'll give it to Rob.
$3.99.
I used it as a coaster while I was working one day.
No, I would never do that. But I was reading that series up until like issue 10, but issue number 3 introduced a new character called Dr. Alfra. I forgot the name. I don't follow it too much. But now that's like a $60, $70 comic book.
Oh, wow.
And it's like what you just said. Like, you don't know what you have up until you kind of go through your catalog of shit. Like, I was on a podcast one time and I had like Batman 881. I forgot what it was, 881 maybe, and it was a Jock cover, and I'm like, oh shit, that comic went for like $100+, and I didn't even know I had it up until I was looking through it, and you just don't know what you have. But you also have to, like, every Wednesday. Now what pisses me off is that DC released their comics on Tuesday now. It's not Wednesday, so you go there Tuesday to try to get your comics before everybody else gets them. Then you got to go Wednesday for a Marvel drop. It's
So you pick one or the other.
No, because if you go there on Wednesday, you got some asshole that's going to take all the DC comics.
That's interesting. What do you think drives that? Why would DC do that?
They need to get one leg up over Marvel.
Okay.
I would think
It ain't gonna happen.
it ain't going to happen. But
You want to know what's funny? And this is the last thing I'll say. You know what outsells DC and Marvel comic books these days by like a ridiculous amount?
Porn.
No, it's not. I'm talking about comic book media.
Black Horse Comics.
No. I would say IDW maybe.
It's manga.
Oh, manga.
Manga by Viz Media.
Well,
They have way, like I'm talking 3 times the market share of DC and Marvel.
It's funny that you say
Oh,
that.
it's because all Japanese shit.
Well,
Yeah.
no, but
but in America, that's what's so crazy.
Well, like,
man.
Well, that's
you know,
what my daughter's
yeah,
into that
exactly.
shit.
There you
Like,
go.
like
That's
your
what the
wife
kids
was like,
are,
"Hey, where
yeah.
can I find this type of a Japanese manga or book?" I'm like, "Dude, you go over there on 99 and there's a whole like Asian market
Yes,
right there."
bitch. Yes, I know what you're talking about.
and
We've
they-
been
and they
over
have-
there.
there's a bookstore, and they have all the manga over there.
Yes, there's a whole manga bookstore. Yeah, Edie,
I told
Edie
her.
wants
I
to
told
go over
Melissa
there.
about it.
Oh, we already knew about it. We have been over there to go get. They have like, what's that place called? Kimiso or something? I don't know. It's like some fucking weird like Korean ice cream place where the waffle cones are made like they look like fish, like fish that hold the ice cream in their mouth. Like it's. I don't know. I don't eat ice cream, but like they were. I don't know. But they. I mean, she was super into it.
Yeah.
So like, I mean, it was. I don't know. Anyway, she liked it. So whatever.
That's freaking neat.
Anyway, on that note. Ryan, thank you again for coming out and sharing your
Love it,
comic
man.
books with us. And we've been trying to
Absolutely.
get this done for. Hopefully, Pop's got a chance to tune in and listen.
He's been blowing up my phone the entire time.
Nice.
He should have commented. Oh, I'm sure he can't figure out how to work Facebook. So that's fine.
Make sure you get that long shot number 3 off your CG. It's contaminating your slabs. All right.
It looks like a 9.8 at this
Oh,
moment.
there you go.
I love that. Yeah.
9.8 long shot worth a whole $1.99.
Yeah, absolutely. But it'll say first appearance. Remember that, kids.
That's right. It will say first appearance. And on that note, I am Rob.
I'm Jake.
I'm Ryan.
And we have been Gentlemen No Class. There's Ryan. I meant to switch earlier. Thank you guys for joining us. Make sure you comment, like, subscribe on our YouTube channel, Facebook page. That way you can get all of our upcoming stuff. We got some big stuff planned. This is episode 96. Woo! Hopefully by the end of the year, we will hit episode 100 if everything goes smoothly. And I think we've got...
Your math is off.
Why?
Because that leaves 96, at least we're in 96. So that leaves 4 more episodes.
Ambitious,
Yeah.
bro.
I know, man.
Ambitious.
Well,
And
we
we do it
were
every 2
supposed to
weeks.
be... Well,
we could make it happen,
well,
maybe.
we don't really podcast as often as we should. But anyway, okay. So let's call it sometime in January. We'll hit episode 100, and I'm working on something big for episode 100. So something big
A tease.
for episode 100. So hopefully we'll get there.
Delicious.
You get Mojo on the episode?
No.
Come out of the comics and just, hey, what's up, guys?
Anyway,
then.
we will catch you guys on the next one.
You just tease him, but it's gonna be like, really, hey, we got Paul. Paul's the special guest, episode 100.
Is he still on the pod?
Oh, you didn't see last episode, The Passion of the Paul?
Oh no.
Oh, that was a
That's
good one, man.
Was he good?
One.
And you know, I
Probably why he's not here tonight.
Oh shit.
we didn't even talk about the comics. They're just not Black Label. It is Black Label.
DC Black Label. Yeah.
I purchased a.
Where you can see Batman's dick.
I purchased Damn #1, signed by Jim Lee at Comic Palooza.
That's awesome.
And the only reason I did that because it showed the bad cock.
Shit, back cock. That's what got it.
That's the
Awesome.
only reason. But see, that's the only reason why it has money value to it because it's a cock. It's the first time they ever showed a cock.